Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Bandai Tamashii Nations S.H.Figuarts unboxing and review video. Now today we are going to be taking a look at a new version of Piccolo based off the new art style in Dragon Ball Super Superhero. That's right, instead of going with cel-shaded animation as they normally would, this time they're going with 3D CGI, and that's exactly what this figure's look is based off. Now I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's collection plus the channel memberships. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and it is done in the traditional S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball style. A big open window showcasing Piccolo inside, an image of the figure himself on the side of the box, plus a bunch more silhouetted images in the background that wraps around the side. On the back you do have a bunch of product shots. Now I am super curious to see how this version of Piccolo compares to the most recently released version of the Proud Namekian. Now I loved that figure, but it wasn't perfect, so we'll have to wait and see if they've made any changes and improvements, or if this is just a straight up re-release with a couple of new parts and pieces. But first in-hand impressions, yeah, they're relatively positive. What we are going to do now though is get all of his accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now unfortunately, I'm pretty sure all the figures in this particular lineup for the movie are kind of light on accessories. No effect pieces, no interchangeable cape, and no display bases. Nevertheless, you do get 3 brand new head sculpts, and I absolutely love them. You do have a slightly goofy smirking expression, but no pink lipstick this time, and yes, he looks all the better for it. A more angry gritted teeth one, and then a fully wide open mouth screaming head sculpt. Now you may be thinking, oh Justin, that's very clearly the same head sculpt we just got with the other Piccolo. Well, actually, it isn't. The eyes are slightly further apart, the mouth is a completely different shape, and they've done away with all of the vein work on the top of his noggin. Now for me, the new one is the very clear winner, but I am curious. Do let me know which of the two styles you prefer down in the comments below. You also get an array of hands, and they've actually changed the color of his fingernails to make it accurate to the movie. Instead of going with white, they've gone with black. Now you do only get one special beam cannon hand. I would have absolutely loved to have received a special beam cannon blast effect, but unfortunately this time they decided not to give us one. What we are going to do now though is get Piccolo himself out here and take a closer look. Here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And going into this, I told y'all I was curious. Are there going to be a bunch of reused pieces, or is there going to be a lot of new? And luckily, it's the latter. This guy is almost entirely new. The only pieces that I can see that are the same compared to the other Piccolo are the legs, that's it. The arms, the upper and lower torso, the head sculpts, and the feet. They're all new, which makes me so very happy. Now, does that mean it makes up for the lack of accessories? Well, that's going to be down to personal preference. But seeing as though the aesthetic is so drastically different in Dragon Ball Super Superhero, I'm glad that they decided to mix it up, because if they hadn't, I don't know that this guy would have perfectly matched up with the CGI model. What we are going to do now though is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now I do have the original, the 2.0 Piccolo just off to the side, because we will be doing some comparisons. But before we do that, we have to discuss something rather peculiar. Now the head sculpt I love, we've already discussed all of the options in the accessory segment. But one thing that I don't love is that the neck is slightly glossier than both the sculpt and the pecs. Now I don't exactly know why that's happened, maybe it's just an issue with this batch, cause everything else is pretty much covered in that matte finish, except for that neck. Now at a distance, it's not super obvious, but up close, yeah, it's much more visible. Now the upper torso is entirely new. The original Piccolo did sit a little bit lower, the gap between this lower section and this upper piece was far smaller, whereas this one has multiple folds and creases, and you can see the top of the muscle pod on his abdomen. The arms are also entirely brand new. The muscle pods are in a completely different place down at the forearms. On this Piccolo there were two, one on either side, whereas with this new one there's only one and it's on the front. They are also painted in yellow. Now I can't imagine this was easy for Bandai to do, cause now it goes over the elbow joint. Even though there isn't that red line to complete the outline, I still think it looks really good. The belt is also now red, and it's a little bit chunkier as compared to this one, which is far thinner. Now coming down to the legs, the upper part of the legs are completely reused, which to me is perfectly fine. The lower part of the legs though is brand new. The legs on the new one do come down to a much broader point than cinch in at the ankles, whereas with the original they kinda started to cinch in all the way up here. Whereas on this one I think it's a much smoother transition. It gives him these big bulky planted legs, which to me absolutely works for Piccolo. One other complaint that I have that I also had with this guy is the smoothness up here at the hip skirts. Now I understand why, because this does slide around at multiple different sections, but a couple of wrinkles sculpted in here would have completed the entire leg and made it look almost entirely seamless. Now coming down to the boots, these are also brand new. The original Piccolo had much smaller and much pointier shoes. I do prefer the aesthetic here, but I prefer the finish here. They are now matte, plus they have a different coloured sole down below. Now, interestingly enough, the muscle pods for his ankles are on the back this time, versus on this one where they were around the front. They are of course pink on the original and yellow on this version. Lastly, up the top, you do still have this removable panel. If you do have the cape from 2.0 Piccolo, that means it will be compatible with this one. Now, does that mean they are planning a future version of this guy because they completely remolded the upper torso but still included the cape attachment? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, yeah, this is a very strong contender for a main Piccolo in the display. Just before we move on, saying it's compatible is one thing, but I actually wanted to try it. Here we have the cape from the 2.0 Piccolo. Now it does peg in using that port up the top and it's nice and secure. The only thing that doesn't really work here is this main shoulder pad and neck section. It does ride a little bit high over his shoulders, there is a significant gap there, just because this is molded to the other Piccolo. It still could absolutely work if your other Piccolo is tied up doing a badass pose and you want to pop the cape on this one. Yes, it is all compatible, but at the same time, it doesn't look perfect. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have Dragon Ball Super Superhero Piccolo on the left and regular Piccolo on the right. I think because of the new chunky soled boots, the new Piccolo is ever so slightly taller. Does that bother me? No, not really, because you can actually see why he's supposed to be the taller of the two. Those boots are very chunky. They've also, of course, switched up the color palette, the red belt, and the yellow muscle pods, which is accurate to the manga. Now, I personally do prefer the pink, which is closer to the traditional animation look, but then again, it's all going to be down to personal preference. Next up, here we have Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku, and as you can see, he is very clearly the shorter of the two. Now, if you were fine with how Goku scaled next to the other Piccolo, you're going to be fine here as well. Because at the end of the day, the size difference between the two Piccolo variants is rather negligible. Now, you may be sitting here thinking, okay, Justin, the scale works, but do the aesthetics clash? And the answer is no, not really. I think these two can work together very nicely. Now, Piccolo's shoes are big and rounded compared to the much more pointy animation look, but in the display, in a pose, I don't think that's something your eye is immediately going to go to. So to answer the question, yeah, I think these two work really nicely standing together. Just going over articulation. Now bear in mind this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I am willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt, it is on a ball joint at the base of the head and another at the base of the neck. Looking forward to there, going back to there, swivel and then pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there, they will go forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that has a ton of range. It also hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow that does get you past 90, and then a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. The torso will crunch forward and back, swivel and then pivot side to side on two separate joints, one at the midsection and then one at the waist. The legs will go forward to there, they will go out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend at the knee that does get you just past 90, a hinge and swivel for the ankle, plus some toe articulation. Just wrapping up on the S.H.Figuarts Bandai Tamashii Nations Dragon Ball Super Superhero Piccolo. And yes, that is still a mouthful. The figure himself though is really good. I didn't really know what to expect going in. This is a figure based on an entirely new art style, but it turns out it's one that I really like. Now, I still think the original Piccolo is the superior release. He comes with more switch-out pieces, he of course comes with the cape, and just more head sculpts. This one, though, does nail a couple of things that I know are going to speak to a lot of collectors. Number one, the proportions are really good. They've made modifications on the upper torso and how the arms connect to the body. They've also changed the color of the muscle pods, which is now more manga accurate. And for me, I prefer the anime, but I do know a lot of collectors out there who prefer the manga. So it's now going to be up to you to decide which color scheme for Piccolo is the one you want to go with. They've also tightened up some of the tolerances with the joints, they're super stiff and sturdy, plus he has a really nice matte finish over the top, whereas the original did get slightly glossy, especially when it came to the shoes. Whereas this one simply doesn't have that issue. The question though is he going to replace the other Piccolo in my display? We'll have to wait and see until the other superhero figures come out, but for now, I don't think that original figure's spot is in jeopardy. Now, I got mine from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and a points-based reward system. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's collection plus the channel memberships, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.